Absolutely. This is outside of that Mad Life game that we just saw. Rest in peace. Space taking the win. Outside of that match that we just saw, this is pretty much my second most anticipated game.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to our final playoff our final group stage best of 3 of the night. CoCo, mid laner for CJ Entis, will be taking on the mid laner from Incredible Miracle Athena, Forget Me Not. Okay, that was Chud's using his teleport. Big shout out to Chudnator, who is functioning in this game as our placeholder champions, ensuring that we can spectate everything. My name is Rapid, with me is Achilles. We're getting into our first game in this best of 3 series.
Yeah, and this is certain to be a very good series indeed. For those of you just joining us, we have CJ Entis CoCo versus I Am Athena, Forget Me Not, who is deemed as being the female faker in Korea. So we're expecting some really masterful plays coming out from this Lysandra. Now, we'll see what happens.
An interesting little fact, Faker said that if he was looking for a girlfriend, she would have to be able to beat him in League of Legends. So here we have probably the closest person in the world to fulfilling Faker's request. And while we're having a little bit of a dance party to start the game, we'll see if Forget Me Not can both win this game, win the upcoming best of 3 to get into the round of 12, maybe get the opportunity to face Faker herself.
That would be one cataclysmic battle, and I look forward to it, and look forward to the possibility of that. Possibly the crowning of the solo queen rather than king. This is I believe the last vestige of hope is right here on the screen with Forget Me Not. Hopefully the dream does not die here. The minions are in the lane, and we are underway. Of course, Arise is going to be the first and only ability that you can take as Azir. The Sand Soldier's coming out.
I like to start with Q on Azir, Achilles. It's a little known strategy because it's actually not possible. But as far as lane mechanics go, there's a couple of interesting things between Azir and Lysandra. Now, Lysandra wants to be able to use her Ice Shard to harass Azir down through the minion wave, and when it comes to sustain in lane, Lysandra should have the advantage, just given that her Iceborne passive allows her some clear cast of spells, no mana cost there, and once she gets enough AP, she's just going to be able to use 2 Ice Shards, clear out the minion wave, and should actually have a pushing advantage versus CoCo. Now, the downside with that is that if CoCo's Azir is able to, have a decent time in lane phase, come back from base with enough AP, hit that level 6, you can actually use Emperor's Divide to push Forget Me Not in maybe a relatively difficult situation, and if she's trying to use that Ice Claw to move around, you can interrupt that with Emperor's Divide as well.
Yeah, there's a large amount of potential for counterplay from CoCo's this year. We'll have to see what happens once we hit that level 6 mark. For now, some general CS, a little bit of aggression actually now coming out. Sand Soldiers doing some work against Forget Me Not with those auto attacks. Azir very much the harass king right now in the current state of the game. But as we can see, Forget Me Not doing a good time of CSing and firing back with a little bit of aggression herself.
Now, it's actually very interesting to watch their positioning, because when it comes to dealing damage to champions, CoCo is way ahead in that. You can see Forget Me Not actually forced to use most of her potions earlier, at least the first one, earlier than CoCo was, just because when you take that Sand Soldier to the face, it's not going to feel very good. Whereas all the CoCo has to do is avoid standing next to minions that can lengthen the distance that Ice Shard travels. So right now, just focusing on getting that CS up, but dead even between both players. And in a 1v1, if you can go even versus CoCo, you're pretty good at League of Legends.
Yeah, big shout out to Forget Me Not, who aggresses in with the Glacial Path. Trying to put some damage down, but Sand Soldier coming right back up. These auto attacks ripping through Forget Me Not.
Very, very painful. And one thing to notice, this is being played on the live patch on the Korean servers, so that would be patch 5.3. And that means that Azir soldiers actually have a slightly smaller auto attack range. So it's not quite as easy to land auto attacks immediately afterwards. Something to notice, some minor Azir nerfs coming out in the current patch.
Yeah, it's going to take a bit more of a concentrated play from CoCo to make sure that he's lining up those sand shoulders properly to maximize the damage output. But with a player like him, a master of his craft, shouldn't have too much trouble getting that harass off. As we can see, it's Forget-Me-Not underneath the turret, out of potions, and low, maybe forced to go back soon. Does have the teleport still. We'll have to see what she decides to go for. When she does back, maybe we'll see the ever classic solo king triple Doran's ring build coming back in, or maybe she'll mix it up and go for something slightly different.
Now, we see most mid laners go with a Crystalline Flask start when they come into lane, just because the ability to get the value by going back to base, teleporting back into lane, and refilling your Crystalline Flask is just huge. When it comes down to just, individual, gold values, you got to be as cost effective as possible. So that's why you see a lot of Crystalline Flasks. But one thing that Faker actually did himself is to start with the Doran's ring and play the lane so aggressively that if you start with Crystalline Flask, you actually wind up losing out just because you can't trade with him. So this time around, we saw a double Doran's ring start for both players, and indeed it is the classic triple Doran's build from Forget-Me-Not, who will actually be able to stay in lane for a little bit longer here and get back some of that CS. She'll actually be ahead in CS if she's able to push this wave underneath turret quickly enough to deny some of that from CoCo once he comes back into base.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too difficult. She does have those ice shards. The TP's coming out, but as you can see, that lane, she clears out hers. But he actually shouldn't have too much of a difficult time getting the CS here. Now Sand Soldier's popped. So he's going to go ahead and pick up all of these. And not losing out too much, they're going to be almost dead even.
He did
Missed
lose
the
one CS in that, and that does put him 1 CS behind. But if you actually look at the itemization, instead of going for triple Doran's ring, CoCo actually went back to base and not only bought boots, which is actually kind of interesting because boots give you 0 combat stats. So when you die and you have boots in your inventory, you really wish you had spent that gold on something that would have kept you alive. But maybe it helps him close the distance here and get that damage done. He picked up a Fiendish Codex too, so not often that you see a second tier item being bought here in the Solo King, just because there is so little gold to deal with, and you don't get any HP off of that Fiendish Codex, so he will be overall a little bit less tanky.
Yeah, he's looking to get, I believe, with the Fiendish Codex picked up, get that extra cooldown reduction, which is going to stack right into his bonus attack speed off of his Dreamless Legacy passive. So he's just looking to play around with that one and get some extra harass off with those Sand Soldier auto attacks. So it's going to do wonders for his harass, which has so far been quite potent. But Forget-Me-Not is pretty well set up for an all-in gauge. It does have the Ignite. Frozen Tomb is available, obviously level 7. Just needs to get a little added harass off in advance, and then she can get that full-on engage going. But CoCo playing very defensively and intelligently, not letting her get the opening that she needs.
Now, CoCo does have 100% win rate on Azir in Spenu Champions this season, so not sure if that's actually relevant, because the only reason he has 100% is that he's only played 1 game with it. The Carrot is banned an awful lot, and specifically in the 1v1 matchup. It's a little bit different than playing it, competitively in Champions. So, be interesting to see how this works out. CS tied up once again, but not for long. Should be seeing Forget-Me-Not remain a couple CS ahead. Actually, no, now only 1 CS in the lead, and took a lot of Sand Soldier harass for that before CS's health push to sustain back up.
Yeah, tried to get that 1 minion in, wasn't able to secure it, and just took about 3 auto attacks. And they are just starting to do an immense amount of damage. As you can see, she's floating around half HP. Luckily, she is safe from getting dove on. Looks like she might want to aggress. No, not able to find the lockdown from the Ring of Frost.
Now actually behind 1 CS. So you can see everything like completely even as far as CS scores are concerned. In order to pick up the victory off of CS score, you actually have to both hit 100 CS and be 10 CS ahead of your opponent. So if the CS score stays within that 10 CS mark, then you are going to be able to win. So for CoCo, He does need to put that aggression on. Teleport just about to come off cooldown here for Forget-Me-Not. She might lose a couple CS for going back to base here. Oh, she's actually going to stay in lane, and that is a difficult situation to be in. She's going to take one more auto attack. No. Getting very low from those sand soldiers and very vulnerable to being dove here. CoCo thinking about it, gonna be able to use those arise commands on the turret. Chunk it down just a little bit more, and Forget-Me-Not risks losing her turret. When she goes back to base, she's gonna have to come back and put up a big fight because CoCo's gonna take her turret.
Yeah, as we can see though, she's not too far behind in CS, so she doesn't have to worry about that currently. He still needs 15 more to hit that 100 CS mark. She's only down by 6, but like you said, turret is in a very precarious spot. Fortunately for her, she can delay his aggression with that frozen tomb if need be, or catch him out if she, he opts to dive. She tries to stop the back with the glacial path, not able to do it. His TP is up, but I suspect that you'll see him using that momentarily.
Another advantage that I want to point out for CoCo is that he actually brought Barrier versus Ignite. It's very smart because the Barrier itself is overall stronger, gives you more HP than picking up Summoner Heal would, and a heal would be mitigated by Ignite if you were under its effects, whereas Barrier is not. So when you get all in, which is the way that Forget-Me-Not is going to probably be able to win this game, the Barrier is going to do a great job at keeping that from being possible. So it's a Fiendish Codex and quad Doran's rings here. Will we see this all in right now? There's Emperor's Divide completely whiffing. If that had hit, CoCo would have actually pushed Forget-Me-Not underneath turret and might have been able to pick up the win just off of that, but Fiendish Codex versus a completed Morellonomicon. This is the first Morellonomicon, first third tier item picked up in this entire tournament. 99 CS, and all he needs is one more to hit that 100 CS mark, but will also need to pick up a 10 CS advantage before he's able to claim victory.
Yeah, the Emperor's Divide being down is actually really bad news for CoCo, but maybe he doesn't even need it. Yet again, Sand Soldier is just doing absolute work here to Forget-Me-Not, who's now hovering around 30% HP mark. Still has the Frozen Tomb, but doesn't really have much of an opening to try to get in with that all-in aggression. Really just opting for the CS. As you can see, we are over the 100 CS mark, 107 to 107, dead even.
Now, one problem that Forget-Me-Not, she's prioritizing CS so heavily at this point that CoCo's really abusing her for that and going in for extra harassment when he knows she has to hit that CS. So for right now, Forget-Me-Not is going to have a decent time at killing off these minions, but CoCo can both CS the minions and go for her ass, whereas Forget-Me-Not needs to get in range of the actual minion wave in order to make that happen. And one by one, individual CS, CoCo is able to edge out Forget-Me-Not, who will need to go back to base. He's standing there right at her turret, because the other thing that you have to keep in mind is that CoCo has a second win condition in being able to use those arise commands on the turret and kill it almost instantly.
Yeah. At this point, Forget-Me-Not cannot leave the lane.
Oh, going in one more. She's going in for the all-in. Actually uses the ultimate on herself. But with the Ignite, even with the Ignite, unable to pick up that kill. Knew she was going to lose it eventually, so decided to try to do something about it. Unable to pick up the kill, and it's CoCo. Take out Forget-Me-Not in game number 1.
Yep. So down but not out here for Forget-Me-Not. Still a best of 3. Had a decent showing here against CoCo Azir, but I suspect that